Today's episode is brought to you by Checkfront, the booking platform trusted by over 5,000 tour and activity operators around the world. You can start your own free 21-day trial over at checkfront.com.
Welcome to the Tourpreneur podcast. Travel industry veteran Shane Whaley will take you on a journey with fellow tourpreneurs, sharing their tips, ideas, insights, and success stories to inspire you to make your tour business the best it can be. And now, here is your host, Shane Whaley.
And welcome, Brian Cain, to episode 82 of the Tourpreneur podcast. Brian is the man behind crawlneworleans.com. How are you, Brian?
I'm very well, Shane. Thank you very much for having me.
So how are things? Because you're based in New Orleans, correct?
Correct.
So what's the latest down there in terms of lockdown?
So it's actually a pretty interesting day today. The mayor is going to speak based on what the first phase one will be and when that will be. So there's a lot of anticipation for what she has to say, actually.
What's your gut instinct telling you?
I think that we'll see another potentially 2 weeks of a stay-at-home order, and then another announcement as we'll move forward. I think that the tour industry here will be one of the last things that's able to come back. Based on it being in the French Quarter, which is, for those that haven't been here, very tight streets, everyone's really close together. I think that, and that would probably be a good thing, but I assume it'll be a few months before we really see tour operators allowed to fully function.
So you were sharing with me that before COVID hit, you were seeing 300% growth month over month. So, fantastic numbers in what you're achieving down there in New Orleans, and then COVID hit, so you're down to 0%, hit with a double whammy, actually a triple whammy if we look at it, because you're hit with that, plus, your tours is nightlife tours, correct? So you work with a lot of pubs and restaurants, and so of course you've got tourism, you've then got restaurants that are hit, so that's the double whammy, and then the triple whammy is you were due to open in Nashville.
Correct. I was actually in Nashville on March 5th, 6th, 7th, signing papers and having agreements with venues on an April 25th launch was meant to be the first tour in Nashville. So yes, triple whammy is probably the best way to put it.
Yes, and unfortunate, of course, but walk us through how do you deal with that? That's 3 hits you're getting there, and we're all suffering here in the tour operator sector, but how are you personally coping with that?
So I like to always think of, the glass half full mentality. Mm-hmm. It's really something that's out of all of our control. So we have 2 options. We can complain and play victim and not be constructive in how to use this time wisely to come out constructively, or exactly the latter. We can look at it and say, well, everyone's affected by this. It actually kind of levels the playing field for everyone. We now have time to focus on the things that perhaps we weren't focusing on based on our day-to-day operations with all the tasks that go into, having guests and tours running. So for me personally, I'm just allowing this time to work on those things. A lot of SEO, we're redoing our website right now. So, and the Nashville thing is obviously just 100% on hold, and it will delay it. I'm anticipating 8 to 12 months delay on a launch there, just based on focusing on New Orleans specifically being the market where we've just been growing so quickly. And we're now, a name that's getting a lot of recognition here in the tour industry. So I just want to focus on that specifically before I overextend, to Nashville, because the ball was rolling here and now it's not. So start to kind of, push that, formidable snowball down the hill slowly again.
And how long have you been operational in New Orleans?
Just over a year. So we would have hit our first tour was March 1st, 2019.
Yeah.
So we just had crossed over a year in New Orleans when this all came down.
And how are you competitive in New Orleans? Because I've been to your city many times. I'm a huge fan. And admittedly, I've never been on a nightlife tour because I'm too old. But how do you remain competitive in what's a very very busy market for people looking for nightlife tours, I imagine?
For a number of reasons. One, small tangent. I've been in this space for a decade. I started working for someone that ran nightlife tours in Las Vegas in the beginning of 2011. And then from there, I kind of watched the scale of that company go all over the world. So I worked in Ibiza, Spain, Miami, San Diego, London, England, Australia. So I kind of seen the evolution of this type of tour specifically. And I think that New Orleans specifically had never seen anything like what we do or the implementation of it. So when we first opened, it was a bit strange for people. And there was a lot of pushback in, okay, that's not possible in New Orleans. And then just my dedication and trust in the process, I think, is what allowed us to excel. We do really well with social media marketing because specifically to touch on what you said, you've never really done a nightlife tour based on your age. Yes. And I think that in New Orleans, a lot of tour companies market specifically to 40 plus, where I specifically target to 35 and under. Yeah. So I think that, our tours aren't sold in the what to see and what to do stand or tourist center with a pamphlet. Most of our bookings come from someone saw our video or an Instagram story or an advert in that space and then kind of purchased based on that.
Yeah, I understand. And I would love to invite you back on the show once we're out of this mess and, deep dive into your business, because I think you've got a lot of knowledge to share there, especially from your travels around the world. I guess a question I would have for you, Brian, is when we get into, so hopefully things will open up in the next couple of weeks for you in New Orleans. How will you go about reassuring nervous travelers? Because obviously you're not an outside walking tour or something that's outdoors where you can social distance or physical distance, quite easy. Some of the venues that you're taking people into are probably smaller bars and restaurants and nightclubs, etc. So I imagine that you're going to have to do quite a lot of reassuring.
Absolutely. So we do actually have tours that exist outside in addition to we're well known for, our party tours, pub crawl, club crawl. But we have two different haunted tours that we run, and that's what we'll test the market with specifically when we're able to run tours and start to implement little things with, the tour community here is really hands-on, and we obviously have, a Facebook group similar to Tourpreneur Facebook group where we talk about, pods of people who are quarantining together and keeping distance from pod to pod while we're outside. I think the implementation of that will be a test as to how any tour company in this market will move forward. The pub tour, the food tour that we do, and then the nightclub tour, I think that we're months away from realistically being able to do tours that aren't private. Yeah. For those, just based on exactly what you said, some of these bars and pubs are quite small. So the social distancing in there, I'm curious to see what the regulations will be coming down from our governor and our mayor on how they will even be able to operate on their own without a company like us, coming into their venue.
Yeah, it's impossible for me to imagine Bourbon Street with people social distancing.
It just doesn't. It seems like it's not in the cards.
Our biggest win we felt with Checkfront is customers being able to book online and not have to make that phone call to us, and they can just navigate our website, go through your interface, and just book directly with us.
once we get into it and once they see all the system can do, it's quite funny because you kind of see the world open behind them before them, and they're like, oh my god, and I can send emails and I can manage how many people come and I can check them in.
I'd recommend using CheckFront because it's simple, it's straightforward, it's easy to use, and most importantly, there are never any problems.
And I do wonder, and again, there's no data, it's way too early for this, but with your demographic being younger, my feeling is, and it's just opinion, is that the younger, so millennials up, won't be as bothered about this. And I think they will be more resilient and they will travel and they'll want to experience things. Maybe people 45 plus will have concerns, but I feel your demographic are going to be those who will throw caution to the wind a bit.
I agree. I've thought a lot about that specifically I think that the probably 24 to 30 age range, I think will be the first to kind of really jump back into travel. Based on income, I think that 24 is that break where people kind of have a little bit more disposable income to take a trip. And additionally, I think they'll be ready to test the waters. Mm-hmm. My concern and small fear is getting into this too quickly and then having the relapse and having things shut down again. Right. So I'm okay with allowing this to last till the end of July or into August to make sure that we don't have another wave that will really cause fear in, I think, everyone in traveling potentially for a long time afterwards.
Yeah, you're a wise man. And I try not to get political on the show, but when you see some of the protesters right now, and here in Vermont, our governor is being slaughtered by a certain section of the population who are demanding he opens everything back up. But I'm like, come on, we're all hurting. We all want to get back to normal, but this has to be done in a conservative, measured, with a small c, measured way.
I completely agree. To touch on that, our governor is being a little bit more proactive with allowing things to open. Mm-hmm. And our mayor specifically went against what he said and said, we're not going to do that in Orleans Parish. And so the governor spoke yesterday about rolling out phase 1 this coming Friday. And our mayor, like I spoke on earlier, we'll talk today about it, what Orleans Parish will do. I like the idea that she's being very cautious about it because this will be a hot spot as it once was, thanks to Mardi Gras and St. Patrick's Day and all of that. I would rather us wait so that the numbers here don't explode and put that fear back in people. So I'm being very, very patient with it. And I think that it's a good move to be so cautious.
I agree. I understand you are offering free virtual tours.
We are, yes. So we're doing them on Sunday night via our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Crawl New Orleans. And it's a live tour. However, there's like stock footage. So we have like drone footage and we've had someone walk the actual route that we do. And then a bit of like a presentation and slideshow as well, in addition to that. So, our guide is doing free tours. They're about 30 minutes long. He tries to do 2 ghost stories each week, which are different each week to kind of encourage listeners to potentially come back. And we want to do them short because we know there's a lot of entertainment options right now. So I think getting someone's attention for 45 minutes to an hour right now is really difficult. Yeah. So I think it's really cool. And I guess I would say that as, the owner of the company, but it's live. So anyone that types in a question, he's answering questions and he's acknowledging who's in the room. But it isn't just looking at someone talking about a story and no context, so it does actually let you feel like you're in New Orleans and it's not a YouTube video that you could rewatch over and over. There is a bit of interaction in it. So every Sunday night, it's just, I think, a cool way to keep the brand active in a time like this. And I have no plans of it ever being like a for pay. Like no one would pay for it.
Why is that? Why wouldn't you charge for it?
I think that virtual tours right, unless they're $1, $2, or I just think that there's so many free entertainment options right now that it would be really hard pressed to get people to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Also, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about the people who are trying to do that. I just think that you're competing now with everything on the internet. So now Netflix is your competitor. You're not competing with the other tour company down the street or this. So I would rather provide value and something really cool for people in a time like this. And perhaps they like the guide or they like the story or maybe the video editing that went in it. And, they're more likely to tell someone about it who might purchase our tour down the road.
I think that's smart. And I agree with you. I went on the Walks Pompeii tour and the tour guide was phenomenal. Absolutely so passionate about Pompeii and the history and the town. And if ever I'm in that part of the world, I would totally want to have that tour guide in that company. And all right, I did pay $10 for the tour because I wanted to help that company out. But that's the thing. We work in the industry. We're more inclined to support this. If I was a member of the public, I probably wouldn't.
It's exactly that. So I've now taken 2 Airbnb experiences, online virtual experiences, what they're calling them. And they were both really cool. And yes, I paid for them, but I think that's, it's like going to see, your friend at the pub, right? Where you'd rather go there and just support the industry itself versus, our first tour did really well. All of my family and former coworkers and everyone wanted to see it. And that's cool, but I don't know how many would have actually paid for it. You know, the audience retention that we've had now that we've done it 3 weeks has been good. But again, that first one, it was, a lot of the industry trying to see what it is. So for me, I like the idea of providing value. And I think that's something that a lot of tour companies right now, I don't feel like are doing. And I think that's a mistake. Give everything away for free right now. I know that that's not good for revenue, but I think that in the end, the growth that you could potentially see based on the free value now is it has a higher value than what you would do in gross revenue right now, if that makes sense.
It does. And I like what you're doing with your digital fundamentals, your foundations, working on your SEO. I mean, these are the jobs that we all know need working on, but we don't find time to do it when we're leading our tours, or it's like one of those jobs that we hate doing. I mean, SEO is boring. I think it's boring. It's vital, but it's not the most exciting of tasks.
Exactly. Right. Our SEO, our on page is optimized. It does really well.
Yeah.
But, we need to write blogs, right? And I'm a control freak. So, and I can write. So before I knew that I needed to write more blogs, but, the team has to get out there and I'm managing tours and guests and emails. And so now being able to sit down and write, the 1,000 to, 3,000 word blogs, it's easier to do now. And I think that focusing on that right now you'll see growth from those blog posts in 2 years rather than, like sitting around and trying to get someone to buy a $10 virtual tour, right? I see more value in writing the blog that will essentially be there as a piece of content forever.
Yeah, or even, the money you spend on creating the virtual tour, if you use that to go on a blog writing course or an SEO course or even a Facebook ads course, it's going to have better long-term results. I often think of the digital side of things, other than paid advertising, as it's like when you go to the gym, right? I'm someone who's trying to lose some weight. I'm trying to go to the gym more. I'm trying to work out more. I'm trying to eat better. You don't go to the gym one day and suddenly, you're ripped, right? I mean, I wish, but it's a year, 2 years, whatever. And I think it's the same with SEO, and blogging. It's things that will pay off in the long term, but you don't see those immediate results. And I think that's why it's difficult for tourpreneurs, as opposed to running a Facebook ad. You can see pretty quickly if that's successful and you're gaining engagement. But the kind of free digital work that we need to do, the non-paid stuff, is it's all long term.
Right, absolutely. I think if I could give any advice to anyone that's listening right now that doesn't know what to do in this time, it would be that specifically, to learn something about SEO or just anything digital that you can create now. I would invest time into that specifically, because it will compound down the road, and you might not see it now, but in 18 months time, that 1,000-word blog post that you put out about, the 5 things not to do on a New Orleans trip could get you.
Love it.
Right. That was a hint for everybody. So that post will get you so many potential customers over such a long period of time, and understanding why you should write it. And specifically, there's a way to write that blog post to allow yourself to be found.
You're right.
So learning that, I think right now it's invaluable. So even though it might seem frustrating that, you're not putting a tour out, or, your revenue is down to, essentially for me, it's zero, It's technically I'm in the negative because we had to issue refunds all the way. We had bookings through the beginning of June when this all happened. So week over week, I'm watching dollars disappear. But that would be my advice to anyone, from someone that does well in the digital market. That would be it, to work on that, understanding Facebook ads better, SEO better, blogging better. Instagram stories is a big one too.
Yeah. What's been a course that you've taken that, you really recommend to people when it comes to digital marketing? Is there one that stands out?
So I've been watching, I'm kind of in the rabbit hole of Skillshare right now, and I'm not endorsed by them. I'm not putting it I think if anyone goes to Skillshare right now, I believe they're giving away 2 months for free. If not, on my Facebook page, there's a link, and that would get you 2 free months. And type in, SEO training, and there's 2 different individuals who have something like 40,000, it's not followers. I forget what the verbiage is there. It's not students either, but people who are actively taking the classes they put out. It's really good, and it's broken down into, I'd say, hour classes. They're all a little bit different. You can do one for 30 minutes, but they break it down into sections of anywhere from like 6 to 15-minute clips. So you don't need to feel like you sit down for hours and hours watching this. You can watch 2 15-minute clips, and then it saves your spot. You go back. It's really cool. That's where I'm at right now. I've watched a lot of Skillshare things for that.
I love this because you probably saw in the Facebook group of the last few days, I'm trying to build this directory, Tourpreneur approved, which is resources recommended by tour operators for tour operators. And I want to create that because there are so many people out there that have courses which are full of filler, basically, and not very good and charging top dollar. And I really want to have this resource where I can add Skillshare and say, Brian Cain of Crawl New Orleans recommends Skillshare for SEO. And then people can email you and just say, hey, what's this, what's that? And you can say, oh yeah, it was really good for helping me with blogs, whatever it may be. And I think that's something I really want to create in this space, because none of us have any money to waste. And I know you said it was 2 months free, but still, we don't, we also don't, although we all have a lot of time right now, we can waste it on a lot of things that are not going to give us the results.
Absolutely. I did see that thread, and I think that it's awesome, to have that it's essentially like co-signed by someone who's in the industry. And by all means, my email address is Brian with an I at crawlneworleans.com. If anyone has any questions, I'm super happy to answer and just provide. I think that there's a lot of value in providing free anything, advice, content, whatever it is. So I encourage people to reach out.
But I'm also happy to pay. Like if you said to me, oh yeah, Skillshare, best thing I ever did for SEO, blog writing, and you tell me that, I'm happy to go pay for it because you've told me that. Whereas if it's some kind of, funnel email that's landed in my inbox from somebody who I don't know, and it's $497, we've all done it, right? We've all spent top dollar on courses that actually weren't very good. And, so this, I don't mind paying for it. If another tour operator tells me, the word of mouth, it works. Brian, thanks a million for giving us some of your time today, dragging you away from your SEO and your blog writing. And I'd love to invite you back on. I really want to hear more about your story of your travels around the world working in this sphere. And also you were telling me you're a touring musician. So I'm really excited to learn how all those experiences are helping you build your business.
Well, Shane, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I listen to your podcast, so being on it is an honor. It'll be interesting listening to myself back because I will. And I look forward to the other people that are in tour operators that'll be in this segment as well, and just trying to get some knowledge from them. So thank you very much. It was an honor.
Thank you, sir. Now I want a hurricane. Now I'm in the mood for a drink. Right? New Orleans, right?
That's the truth.
Yeah, it's only 11:28 a.m. I'll have to hold off. Cup of tea it is. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Shane.
Thanks for listening to the Tourpreneur podcast. Be sure to visit tourpreneur.com to join the conversation and access the show notes, including links to the resources mentioned on today's episode. This is Tourpreneur.